I'm not sure if you can see that. Oh, you probably can. If you notice anything about this floor is not straight. Actually, the load-bearing wall had nothing underneath it. And what began to happen is the whole house began to cave in. So we need to replace that wall, and we need to make something strong so it can hold everything up. Because the reality is, and the way the houses work, they need to be strong. Walls need to be held up. Things need to be screwed down, nailed down, so things don't move. And when you're walking, you're not feeling like you're on a skate park or in the middle of the ocean with the waves. You want things to be flat. So in order to do that, we need to take out that wall. But in order to take out that wall, we needed to build this wall. But not only that wall, we needed to build, can you see it? I don't know. We needed to build another wall right here. So on either side of the wall we're taking out, we needed to build a wall. But before we take out the wall and make that wall make sense, we have to downstairs build the same thing. Now we're not going to keep these walls. Actually, we're going to reuse the wood because it's so freaking expensive right now. But we're going to reuse the wood for the rest of the renovations we're going to do. But there's a problem. Something needs to be fixed. And in order to fix that, we need to do something. But in order to do that, we needed to do something else. In order to do that, we needed to do something else until we got to the point where we could start. So we pulled some stuff up and made things happen and got ready. And today we're going to finish building these support walls. And as I was looking at all the things that we need to do so many things to do one other thing. Actually, it's like, yeah, we just need to replace that wall. Well, it's not that easy. And sometimes in our lives we think, oh yeah, we just need to deal with this. But it's not always that easy. Because a lot of the times the things that we're dealing with, the problem isn't what we're dealing with, but there's something before that was causing the problem. And maybe there was something before that was causing that problem. And then we have to get down to the root of what the situation is. See, God doesn't really, take this, I'm going to hear the whole thing because you might think I'm heretical when I start. But God doesn't care what you do. Really. God's biggest concern isn't that you do this and you do that. That's just behavior modification. And that's just being good. And anybody can be good. Anybody can do good things. And that's where a lot of people get hooked up because they think, you know, as long as I'm doing good things, God's going to be happy with me. But that's not what God's concern is. It says man looks at the outward appearance. Man looks at what you're doing. God looks at the heart. God looks at why are you doing it? And a lot of the times it's the difficulties that we have with the sin that's in our life or the problems that we're dealing with or the struggles that we're trying to address go beyond just those struggles, beyond the actions, but there's something going on inside. A lot of times in our lives, it's easy to deal with the behavior, but it's not always easy to deal with the reason behind it. Why don't you trust? Because, you know, there's a belief system that says God doesn't really want the best for me. Why do you fear? Because you really don't believe that God is safe. And it doesn't matter what you're fearing or what you're not trusting. The reality is if it all comes back to our relationship with God. The heart. Where's your heart before God? Because that is what's going to change the way that you behave. See, Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. He said, I'm not worried about you keeping my commandments. I'm worried about you loving me. That's why the scripture says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. Because if you love God with all of those things, he won't have to worry about your behavior because your behavior will be a natural outpouring of that love for God. You see what I'm saying? So God isn't all that concerned with what you do, only as it pertains to how much it hurts you. Because he's already forgiven your sin. See, what God is concerned about is where your heart is before him. That's what he's concerned about. And sometimes God says, in order to deal with that, we're going to have to shore some other things up. Because when we start pulling out the supports that were broken, when we start pulling out those walls that really aren't holding up anything, when we start pulling out that belief system of those things that you've been relying on, those lies, if we don't shore it up, you're going to cave in. So God says, we're going to work on some other things. We're going to build you up. And the scripture talks about building each other up in the faith. We need each other to encourage one another. We need each other for supports. And sometimes God says, I'm not going to address this until you've got the supports you need. And that's what he's working on. So if God is calling you to change some things in your life and you need some support, you need to go out and find it. But I also want to encourage you who are believers and God has brought you through those things. God says this. In the scriptures, it says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. You know what? You need to be this wall. You need to be this structure in somebody's life. You need to walk into somebody that's hurting and saying, you know what? I'm going to walk with you because when we start pulling out that crap, I want to make sure your life doesn't cave in. I want to make sure that you're strong. I want to make sure you're healthy. I want to make sure you get from where you are to where you need to go. So are you as a Christian, are you as one that God has brought from death into life? Are you as one who God has given strength? Are you going to be the one that's going to step into somebody's life and say, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to be that structural wall. I'm going to be the one that holds you up when your life is falling apart. I've got people in my life that have done that for me. When my life was falling apart, I can go to them and they're there for me. I had that structure. God has blessed me with it, but God has also called me to be that in other people's lives. So let this be an encouragement to you. You need it and you need to be it. God bless you. Bye for now.